Welcome to RomWills Money Matters, making dinners for your neighborhood. Now, this is just an example, but I'm just using that as the title, just to give you an idea where I'm going with this. You know, I was working on some stuff, sitting in my office, and I had my windows open, and I'm seeing all these people walking by, walking their dogs. A lot of professionals living around here. This is one of those neighborhoods, one of those complexes that you're going to have a lot of professionals, especially a lot of young professionals. And I always thought about something one of my mentors said to me one time about how you could have one person, just one person, who's cooking dinners for everybody in that neighborhood. Now, think about it, just the dinner part. I'm gonna get into some other stuff, but think about it. If you want to start a business, what you need to do is be thinking about, who is this business for? Who are you serving? Who are you doing stuff for? Now, I was thinking about, I was like, there's a lot of people around here. Now, if I was a cook, I could make some money. I could say, hey, put some flyers out, say, hey, I'll make some dinners for you. And this is what we're going to have. Or shoot, even take it to another level and say, I'll make what you want. This is my menu. And then, they just pay for it. You make it. You make it all day. You pay for it and everything. Now, I don't know if what laws you got to deal with or things of that nature. And you might have to. You can look into that. But think about it. If you're in a good place, say you got a couple hundred people living in a section, or maybe even a couple thousand living in a section. You're in a perfect place to make food for them. You can get food for them, you get paid. And you could probably find some wholesale place to get whatever ingredients you need to get, and then you can hook them up. That's a business right there. That is a business. And I don't want to just talk about businesses. I was thinking about all the dogs I see around here. And I've seen one time a young lady walking a bunch of dogs around here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do just in your neighborhood. Like where I used to live, a house I used to live in, right next door, there was a woman who had a daycare. She had a daycare. She would watch all the neighborhood's kids. Right in her house, right in her yard. Yeah, I ain't gonna say anything about some of the kids, but it was something. It was something. And she was staying home. She didn't have to work. Her husband, he was a blue collar guy. He would go out and do stuff, but they were right there. She didn't have to go any place, and she could just make that money. Think about it. One of the places that you can make money is in your neighborhood, depending on what you're doing. It don't have to be, it don't have to be making dinners. You could have a little business just walking dogs. Because there's plenty of people, they got to get their dogs walked. And I remember talking with a young lady. She was actually dog sitting one time. The family had to go out of town. You could do something like that. Child care, trust me. If you got if you live in some place, you got a nice sized house, and how much child care costs, and you could probably undercut like any major child care places. In fact, I remember my grandmother, may she rest in peace, for a little while she was offering child care. So, I mean, it was something. But think about your neighborhood. Think about what they might need around there. Because I mentioned the child care place next to me, the lady next to me. But then there was a young man, he was just hitting up people cutting grass. And this was a while ago. He was saying, hey, do you need your grass cut? I was like, nah, I can cut it myself. I had a lawnmower and all of that. All he had to do was maybe hit up a few places and he could make money. And he was young. I said, yeah, this is going to be one of those guys who's going to make money in the long term. And basically, look in your neighborhood, whatever you need. You could be somebody who cleans houses. You're a good cleaner. You could like say, hey, I'll just come in, clean up, and get where I think you got to get some type of bond or something. They got to make sure you don't steal anything. Make sure, regardless of what you do, make sure you have the proper licenses and all of that. But that's say you're in a neighborhood and you good at cleaning. You good at cleaning homes, you good at cleaning whatever. You can have a cleaning service. That's right there. See, one thing, when you're in a neighborhood, whatever they need. In fact, I remember driving through one neighborhood and dude had he had a detailing place right in his yard. Or at least I think it was a dude. I don't know, but it had a homemade sign up say, hey, you can get your car detailed right here. And some people might do that, get their car washed, detailed, something like that. You can think of whatever. Think about whatever, because here's the beauty of the neighborhood. You have a bunch of people who need something. And especially if you really are in a neighborhood where people going to work every day, and like getting back to what I was saying about the dinner, they probably don't have time to make food, especially if these are young professionals. And they probably don't want to go out and eat all the time, probably don't have time to cook. And you'll say, hey, I'll make the meal for you. And that's just one thing. If you're not a cook, don't worry about it, but think about what else you could do. You might be able to cut grass, water the lawn, wash cars. There's so many things. Walk the dogs. And especially where I live, there's nothing but dogs around here. Yeah, I'm like, man, there's a lot of dogs. In fact, there's out behind my house, there's a dog park out behind my house. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what these people are doing. Because, everybody can't stay home. Everybody's not working online. So, sometimes people might have to come home and walk their dog. But what if they had somebody to do that? What if they had somebody to come in, just walk the dog, do all of that stuff? Think about it. See, one of the things you want to think about is your customer base. And depending on what you're doing, you might have a customer base right there where you live. In fact, especially if you're married or living with somebody, cohabitating, maybe they can go out and make some money. That way they can go out, get that job, that 9-to-5 job or something, but you could do something else. And this is regardless of whether you are a male or a female. Shoot, you could be somebody who know how to fix cars. You could say, hey, you don't have to charge all that. You can just bring it right here in the driveway. I'll make it fixed for you. I remember I was living, when I was living in Temple Hills, Maryland. There was a guy, he didn't work at all. Now, he might have been like a house husband or something like that. And whatever, we ain't gonna get into it. But all he did was fix cars. That's all he did. That's all he did was work on cars. Now, I didn't notice if he worked on anybody else's car, but he probably could have said, hey, I can fix your car, I can change the oil, just some basic stuff, still make some money, all right? So always think about what you can do in your neighborhood. Especially in this time, and you probably undercutting any restaurants, any child care places, whatever, dog walking places, whatever. But your neighborhood is right there, all right? So it's something for you to think about. So you know the deal. Let's go make that money.